My name is Claire Whitmore. I'm 33 years old. And if you had told me a year ago that my younger sister would end up pregnant by the man I thought I was going to marry, and that my father would reward both of them with the family business and a house, I would have laughed in your face. Not because my family was healthy. It wasn't. Not because my sister was incapable of betrayal. She wasn't. But because some betrayals are so ugly, your brain refuses to picture them until they are already standing in your living room crying, asking you to understand. To understand. That was the word everyone kept using afterward. Understand Alexa. Understand Ethan. Understand my father. Understand the baby. Understand the situation. Nobody ever asked if they understood what they had done to me. But to explain why it destroyed me the way it did, I need to go back. I grew up with my younger sister, Alexa Whitmore, in a house that looked normal from the outside. White siding. 2-car garage. A basketball hoop in the driveway neither of us really used. A mother who smiled too quickly when neighbors asked how we were. A father who smelled like sawdust, copper wire, and black coffee. From the outside, we were just another hardworking family. Inside, everything revolved around Alexa. She was the miracle baby. That was what everyone called her. My mother had a terrifying pregnancy with her. Emergency appointments, hospital stays, doctors speaking in careful voices behind half-closed doors. Then Alexa was born sick. Breathing problems, infections, long nights at the hospital, machines beeping, my mother crying into tissues, my father pacing with his hands locked behind his neck. I remember sitting in waiting rooms with coloring books on my lap, knowing even at 7 years old that I was supposed to be quiet. Quiet daughters were helpful. Quiet daughters didn't add to the burden. Quiet daughters understood. And I did understand that having a sick child was terrifying. I'm not heartless. But the strange thing was, even after Alexa got better, my parents kept treating her like she might break if anyone expected anything from her. Alexa skipped school. She needs rest, Claire. Alexa failed a class? She's been through so much. Alexa broke something expensive? Don't make her feel worse. But me? I had to get perfect grades. I had to help with dishes. I had to remember appointments. I had to be patient. I had to know better. By the time I was 7, I was already being trained to act like the third adult in the house. There was one moment in high school I still remember clearly. I got detention once because my bus was late and I walked into class 6 minutes after the bell. My father grounded me for a week. No phone, no friends, no TV. That same month, Alexa got caught skipping school to hang out at the mall with 2 friends and a boy from her math class. My parents sat her down for a gentle conversation. That was it. No punishment. No consequences. Just my mother rubbing her back while my father said, "We just worry about you, sweetheart." I stood in the kitchen doorway listening, my detention slip still sitting on the fridge like a criminal record. That was my childhood in one picture. Alexa made mistakes. I paid for mine. I started working with my father in his electrical business when I was 15. Not because I had some grand dream of becoming an electrician back then. I did it because it was the only reliable way to get his attention. When I held the flashlight steady, he nodded. When I learned the names of tools, he looked impressed. When I showed up early on Saturdays while Alexa slept until noon, he said, "That's my girl." And I became addicted to those crumbs. So I got good. Really good. I learned residential wiring first. Outlets, panels, breakers, grounding, troubleshooting old houses where every wall hid a surprise. Then I started studying more complicated work, smart home systems, security installs, commercial upgrades, energy-efficient lighting, backup generators. While other girls my age were planning beach trips, I was watching installation videos at midnight and reading code manuals with a highlighter. My father's company was solid but old-fashioned. Basic residential electrical work, some light commercial jobs, nothing flashy. It paid the bills, but I could see what it could become. I tried to push him forward. Online scheduling, digital invoices, commercial contracts, better branding, smart home packages. He fought me on almost everything. "That's not how we do things," he'd say. But when one of my ideas worked, somehow Alexa still found a way to drift into the credit. "Your sister suggested we should get a better website," Dad said once. Alexa had said that while eating cereal at noon. I had spent 3 weeks finding the designer, organizing photos, writing service descriptions, and setting up client forms. But sure, Alexa had good ideas. Alexa was charming. Alexa was fragile. Alexa was always almost trying. That was enough for them. Me, I had to produce proof. Over and over and over again. Alexa was smart when she wanted to be. I'll give her that. She could walk into a room and make people feel like she had just chosen them specially. She had this soft laugh, this wounded look, this way of turning every failure into something that happened to her instead of something she caused. She tried college for 2 semesters and dropped out because it was too overwhelming. She started an online boutique that sold cheap imported jewelry and folded in 4 months. She tried day trading and lost a chunk of Dad's savings. Somehow, after every disaster, I was the one getting lectures. Support your sister? Family comes first. Alexa just needs confidence. It created this ugly mix inside me. I love my sister because she was my sister. But I also hated the way the world bent around her. I moved out as soon as I could afford it. My apartment was 20 minutes from my parents' house, close enough to help with the business, far enough to breathe. It wasn't fancy, 1 bedroom, uneven floors, a kitchen cabinet that never closed right. But it was mine. I was making decent money. I was building a reputation. I was thinking about getting my master electrician license. For the first time in my life, I had started imagining a future that didn't depend on my father finally seeing me clearly. Then I met Ethan Hale. He was 29 when we met, the property manager for a luxury apartment building downtown where my father's company had been hired for a major rewiring project. The first time I saw him, he was arguing with 2 HVAC guys in the lobby. Not yelling. That would have been easier to ignore. He was calm, precise, and absolutely destroying them with details. This vent placement violates the plan you submitted, he said, holding a clipboard against his chest. And if you seal that access panel, maintenance will have to cut into finished drywall every time there's a problem. So no, I'm not signing off on it. I remember standing there with my tool bag in one hand thinking, okay, he actually knows what he's talking about. Most property managers I dealt with wanted things fast and cheap. Ethan wanted them done right. Over the next few weeks, he kept coming around to check our progress. Not in an annoying way. He asked real questions. He knew enough to understand the answers. He told me his mother had worked as a general contractor when he was growing up, and he'd spent summers carrying lumber, sweeping job sites, and learning the difference between people who knew their trade and people who only knew how to fake confidence. I liked him before I wanted to admit I liked him. I started timing my lunch breaks around his building rounds. At first, we talked about work. Then we talked about family. He told me he had an older cousin who had been treated like royalty because he became a lawyer. I told him about Alexa, the miracle sister who could burn down a room and still somehow be called misunderstood. He laughed and said, we should start a support group for responsible siblings. I remember thinking I had never felt so quickly understood by a man before. When the apartment project ended, I thought that was it. Then 1 week later, Ethan called the office about an urgent electrical issue in his personal apartment. My father sent me. There was no electrical issue, not even a flickering light. Ethan opened the door, looked embarrassed for exactly 3 seconds, then said, I couldn't think of a professional reason to see you again. It was smooth, annoyingly smooth. We started dating after that. And Ethan was different from the men I had dated before. He didn't act threatened by my job. He liked that I knew what I was doing. He asked about my projects. He brought me coffee when I studied for licensing exams. He listened when I ranted about my family instead of trying to fix it with some lazy sentence like, just let it go. Within a year, he was helping with the business side of things. Scheduling, invoices, contracts, client emails. He built systems we desperately needed. Proper digital records instead of handwritten quotes stuffed into folders. Follow-up emails, maintenance reminders, cleaner billing. My father complained at first. He liked paper. He liked doing things the way he had done them since 1994. But even he had to admit the office ran better with Ethan's help. For once, I felt like I wasn't carrying everything alone. Ethan and I moved in together after 2 years. We talked about marriage, kids, a house, a future where work didn't swallow us whole. He used to joke that our children would know how to reset a breaker before they could tie their shoes. I believed him. That's the part that still makes me feel stupid. I believed all of it. My family liked him at first. My mother adored him. She asked him to help with computer things and invited us over for dinner constantly. My father warmed up when he realized Ethan was helping the company make more money. Even Alexa got along with him. Too well, I would later understand. Back then, I thought it was a good thing. Ethan would defend her sometimes when I complained. She probably feels useless around all of you, he'd say. Or, growing up sick must have shaped her more than you realize. I thought that meant he was compassionate. I thought that meant he was fair. Looking back, I wonder if the first warning sign was not that he defended Alexa. It was that Alexa started listening to him in a way she had never listened to anyone. Then, about a year before everything exploded, Alexa burned through another chunk of Dad's money on a crypto trading scheme she barely understood. She came home broke, again. And Dad gave her a job in the office. Basic work. Answering phones. Filing paperwork. Scheduling appointments. Nothing complicated. Nothing she should have been able to destroy. But destruction was Alexa's real talent. Ethan said he could help train her on the new systems. My mother said it would be good for Alexa's confidence. My father said families should work together. And I was out on job sites 12 hours a day, trying to build the future Ethan and I kept talking about. So I said yes. That is the word I keep going back to. Yes. Yes, Ethan, train her. Yes, Alexa can help. Yes, Dad, I'll be patient. Yes, Mom, I'll give her another chance. I kept opening doors for people who were already planning how to lock me out. At first, nothing obvious happened. Just small things. Ethan spending more time at my parents' house because it was easier to work on office paperwork there. Alexa suddenly taking an interest in scheduling. My father praising her for showing up on time twice in 1 week. My mother acting like we were witnessing a resurrection. I wanted to believe it was progress. I wanted to believe my sister was finally growing up. Mostly, I wanted to believe Ethan was still mine. So when he started coming home late, I accepted his explanations. When he changed his phone password, I believed him when he said it was because of a banking app security update. When Alexa started wearing perfume to the office and actually brushing her hair before work, I told myself maybe confidence really did change people. I was so busy trying to be reasonable that I ignored the feeling in my stomach. That quiet, cold warning. The one that whispered every time Ethan smiled at his phone. The one that tightened every time Alexa said his name too casually. The one that told me something was already happening, even before I had proof. And the worst part is, I did have proof. Not enough to accuse, but enough to know. I just wasn't ready to lose everything yet. If betrayal had a sound, I think it would be silence. Not the loud kind. Not shouting, not slammed doors. The quiet kind. The kind that settles into your life slowly, rearranging things without asking, until one day you realize nothing is where you left it. That was what the next few months felt like. A slow, quiet shift. At first, I told myself I was imagining it, because the alternative, that the man I trusted most and the sister I had spent my entire life protecting were betraying me in the same breath, was too big to look at directly. So I focused on the small things, and then the small things started adding up. Ethan changed his phone password. We had always known each other's passwords. Not because we were controlling, but because we had nothing to hide. If his phone rang while he was in the shower, I'd answer it. If mine buzzed while I was driving, he'd check it. It was normal. Until it wasn't. One night, I picked up his phone to check a notification while he was cooking. The screen lit up, asked for a passcode, and I froze. "Did you change your password?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He didn't turn around right away, just kept stirring whatever he was making. "Yeah," he said after a second. "Banking app update. They made me reset it." He said it like it was nothing, like I shouldn't even question it. And I didn't. I nodded, set his phone back down, and told myself I was being ridiculous. But something in his tone stayed with me. It wasn't defensive. It was preemptive, like he had already prepared that answer. Around the same time, Alexa started changing too. Not in a dramatic movie-style transformation, just enough to feel off. She started showing up to work on time. That alone should have been suspicious. Alexa had spent most of her adult life treating schedules like suggestions. But suddenly she was there before 9, coffee in hand, dressed like she had somewhere important to be. New clothes. Actual effort. Perfume. She even started asking questions about the business. Not surface-level ones. Real ones. How do you handle repeat clients? What's the difference between residential and commercial margins? How do you price emergency calls? I remember standing in the office doorway one morning, listening to her talk to Ethan, watching him explain things to her slowly, patiently, like she was worth the time. Like she mattered. And I felt something tighten in my chest. Because I had spent years asking those same questions and being told to figure it out myself. But I pushed that thought away. Because jealousy, in my family, was always framed as selfishness. And I had spent my whole life trying not to be selfish. Then there was Janet. Janet had been our receptionist for 15 years. She knew everything. Every client. Every invoice. Every unspoken tension in that office. She had watched me grow up. She had watched Alexa fail, recover, fail again. And she had watched Ethan walk in and slowly become part of everything. One afternoon, I came into the office early from a job because we ran out of materials. It was around 6:45 p.m. The lights in the front were dimmed, but I could hear voices in the break room. Laughter. Not casual laughter. The kind that comes from inside jokes. The kind that belongs to two people who share something no one else is part of. I walked in. Ethan and Alexa were sitting across from each other at the small table, leaning in, their voices low. They both jumped when they saw me. Not dramatically, but enough. Enough that it registered. "Hey," I said slowly. "Hey," Ethan replied, a little too quickly. Alexa looked down at the table, suddenly fascinated by a stack of invoices. What are you guys doing? I asked. Just going over some paperwork, Ethan said. At 7 at night? He shrugged. We lost track of time. I nodded, smiled, acted normal, because that's what I did best. I played along. But when I turned to leave, I caught Janet watching from the front desk. Her expression wasn't neutral. It wasn't confused. It was worried. Later, when Ethan and Alexa had left, I walked over to her. What's going on? I asked quietly. She hesitated, just for a second. Then she shook her head. Nothing, Claire, she said. Just busy. You know how it is. She went back to typing. Conversation over. But the look she gave me before she looked away, that stayed with me. That was the moment I should have pushed harder. I should have asked again. I should have demanded the truth. But I didn't. Because somewhere deep down, I think I already knew. And knowing meant everything would fall apart. So I chose not to know. Things got worse after that. Ethan started coming home later. Not dramatically late. Just later. An extra hour here. 2 hours there. Always with a reason. Client emergency. Scheduling issues. Training Alexa takes time. Training Alexa. That phrase started appearing in almost every explanation. And Alexa? She started talking about Ethan differently. Not just as my boyfriend. As someone she admired. Ethan's actually really good with people, she said one night at dinner. He's helping me understand how the business works, she added another time. He's really patient, she said almost softly when I complained about her messing up a schedule. Patient. The word echoed in my head, because I had spent years trying to earn that patience from my father. And now she was getting it from Ethan without even trying. At first, I thought I was just being sensitive. Then came the dinner, the one I still replay in my head sometimes. Because everything was there. All of it. If I had just looked directly at it. It was a family dinner at my parents' house. Nothing special. My mom had made roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, the usual. We were all sitting around the table. My father at the head. My mom beside him. Alexa across from me. Ethan next to me. For the first half hour, everything was normal. Then, out of nowhere, Alexa said something under her breath. I didn't catch it. But Ethan did. And he laughed. Not politely. Not the kind of laugh you give to keep a conversation going. A real laugh. The kind that bursts out of you before you can stop it. Alexa snorted, trying to hold hers in. They looked at each other, and for a second it was like no one else was in the room. What? I asked. They both looked at me, too quickly. Nothing, Ethan said. You had to be there, Alexa added. You had to be there. The words landed harder than they should have, because I wasn't there. And whatever they were sharing, it wasn't something I was part of. The rest of the dinner felt off. Ethan checked his phone more than usual. Alexa barely looked at me. My mom kept trying to fill the silence with small talk. My father didn't seem to notice anything at all. Or maybe he chose not to. On the drive home, I finally said something. You okay? I asked, glancing at Ethan. He was staring at his phone again. Yeah, he said, just tired. You seemed off tonight, he sighed. Work's been crazy, Claire. I nodded. Then I said the thing I had been holding back. You and Alexa seem close lately. That got his attention. He turned his head, his expression tightening just slightly. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, I said quickly. I just noticed you've been spending a lot of time together. She works in the office now, he replied. I'm training her. What do you expect? I know, I said. You just what? His tone sharpened. And that threw me. Ethan didn't snap at me. He didn't get defensive. That wasn't who he was, or at least not who I thought he was. I'm not accusing you of anything, I said carefully. Sounds like you are, he shot back. I'm just saying things feel different. Maybe you're just stressed, he said. You've been working a lot. There it was. The deflection. The shift. The subtle suggestion that the problem was me. I'm not stressed, I said quietly. He shrugged. Then maybe you're overthinking. I stared out the window after that. The streetlights blurred past. The silence between us felt heavier than anything he could have said. Because in that moment, something changed. Not in him. In me. For the first time, I didn't feel like we were on the same side. And that scared me more than anything else. When we got home, he went straight to the bedroom. Said he had an early morning. I stayed in the kitchen a little longer, staring at the sink, at the faint reflection of myself in the dark window. I tried to convince myself everything was fine, that I was reading too much into things, that relationships go through phases, that families are complicated, that trust means not jumping to conclusions. But underneath all of that, there was something else, a quiet, steady voice, the same one I had ignored weeks ago, the one that didn't panic, didn't accuse, didn't scream. It just said, pay attention. I wish I had listened to it sooner, because the truth was already there, right in front of me, waiting. The day everything finally broke felt ordinary right up until it didn't. It was a Tuesday, I remember that detail because Tuesdays were usually my longest days. I was out on a commercial job, rewiring a warehouse on the edge of the city. Loud, dusty, the kind of work where you don't think about anything except measurements, circuits, and not making a mistake that could cost someone their safety. It was almost peaceful in its own way, until my phone rang. Ethan. I almost didn't answer. Not because I was avoiding him, just because I was on a ladder, halfway through tracing a panel. But something made me climb down. Something in my chest tightened before I even picked up. "Hey," I said, slightly out of breath. There was silence on the other end. Then, "Claire, I need to talk to you." His voice was wrong. Shaky, thin, like it had already been used up before it reached me. "What's wrong?" I asked immediately. "Is everything okay? Did something happen?" "Can you come home?" he said. "Please, it's important." My mind jumped straight to the worst possibilities. His parents. An accident. Something medical. "I'm on a job," I said, already grabbing my keys. "Give me 20 minutes. "Okay," he whispered. Then the line went dead. I told my crew I had a family emergency. Didn't explain. Didn't need to. The drive home felt longer than it actually was. Every red light felt personal. Every second stretched. When I pulled into the driveway, Ethan wasn't inside. He was sitting in his car. Engine off. Hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles looked pale even through the glass. For a moment, I just sat there in my truck, watching him, trying to prepare myself for whatever this was. Then I got out and walked over. I opened the passenger door and slid into the seat beside him. The air inside the car felt heavy, like it hadn't moved in hours. "What happened?" I asked. He didn't look at me, just kept staring straight ahead. Then he said it. "I'm pregnant." For a second, I didn't understand. The sentence didn't fit, didn't land, didn't make sense. Then my brain corrected it. He wasn't talking about himself. He was telling me something. "She's pregnant," he said again, voice breaking. And just like that, everything in my body lit up. Not fear, not anger. Hope. Fast, irrational, overwhelming hope. "Okay," I said quickly, already reaching for solutions. "Okay, we can figure this out. We talked about kids, right? Maybe not this soon, but hey, we can move things around. We can adjust. We can—" "Claire." His voice cut through mine. Sharp. Final. "There's more." That was when the hope stopped. Not slowly. All at once. Like someone had flipped a switch. "What do you mean?" I asked. He finally turned to look at me. And I saw it. Guilt. Real, undeniable guilt. It might not be yours. The words hung in the air. Cold. Impossible. My brain rejected them immediately. Like a glitch. Like a sentence in the wrong language. "What?" I said, almost laughing. "What are you talking about? What do you mean it might not be mine? Who else would it be?" And then it clicked. Not gradually. Not piece by piece. All at once. Late nights. Changed password. Inside jokes. Janet's look. The break room. Alexa's voice saying his name like it belonged to her. My stomach dropped so fast it felt like I might be sick. "No," I said immediately. "No." He didn't speak. Didn't deny it. Didn't even try. "No," I repeated, turning toward him fully now. "Tell me I'm wrong." Silence. "Ethan," I said, my voice sharper now, louder. "Tell me I'm wrong." His eyes filled. It wasn't supposed to happen. The words landed like a slap. I let out a short, broken laugh. "Oh," I said. "Of course. Right. That makes sense. You just, what? Tripped? Fell? Landed on my sister?" "It wasn't like that," he said quickly. "Then what was it like?" I snapped. "Explain it to me. I'm listening." He ran a hand through his hair. "We were working late," he said. "It just happened." "One time?" I asked. He hesitated. That was all I needed. "How long?" I asked quietly. "Claire." "How long?" I repeated. His shoulders dropped. 3 months, he said. Maybe 4. The number hit harder than anything else. 3 to 4 months. Not a mistake. Not a moment. A pattern. A choice. Repeated. Calculated. Hidden. "Does she know?" I asked, my voice suddenly calm. He nodded. "I told her yesterday." Yesterday. So they had already talked about it. Already decided something. And I was just now being brought in. Like an afterthought. Like paperwork. I opened the car door and stepped out. The air outside felt too sharp, too real. He followed me. "Claire, please, let me explain." "Were you ever going to tell me?" I cut in, turning to face him. He stopped. Didn't answer. Didn't have to. "Were you?" I asked again. Silence. And in that silence, something inside me broke cleanly. Not shattered. Not chaotic. Clean. Like a line being drawn. "Get your stuff," I said. "Claire." "Get your stuff," I repeated. "You have 24 hours. I don't care where you go. I don't care what you do, but you're not staying here." "What about the baby?" he asked, his voice desperate now. I looked at him, really looked at him. At the man I had built a future around. At the man who had sat at my table, held my hand, planned a life with me. While sleeping with my sister. Better hope it's hers, I said coldly, because if there's even a chance it's mine, we're handling it through lawyers. He flinched. Good. He should have. I didn't wait for him to say anything else. I turned, got in my truck, and drove straight to my parents' house, because there was one more person I needed to hear it from. Alexa. I found her in the office, sitting at the desk, scrolling through something on her phone like it was just another day, like nothing had changed, like she hadn't just detonated my entire life. She looked up when I walked in, and for a split second, she knew. Claire. I didn't let her finish. I crossed the room in 3 steps and grabbed the edge of the desk, leaning over it. Tell me it's not true. My voice was low, controlled, dangerous. Her eyes filled immediately. It wasn't supposed to happen. Wrong answer. Tell me it's not true, I repeated. She swallowed. Then she whispered, It's his. Something in my vision went white. I don't remember deciding to move. I just remember the sound. The chair hitting the floor. Her crying. Someone yelling. Hands grabbing me, pulling me back. My father's voice shouting my name. 2 of our employees rushing in. It all blurred together. But I do remember this. Alexa on the floor. Tears streaming down her face. And still trying to speak. Claire, please, we didn't mean... We? I laughed, sharp and broken. We? My father stepped between us. Enough, he said firmly. We are not handling this like this. Not like this. Like there was a better way to handle betrayal. Like there was a polite version of what they had done. Then Alexa said it. The thing that changed everything. I'm having his baby. The room went still. My father's face went pale. My mother, who had just walked in, covered her mouth. Even the employees froze. Because now it wasn't just betrayal. It was permanent. It was real. It was something that couldn't be undone. I looked at my father, at the man who had spent my entire life choosing her, waiting, hoping, just this once, he would choose me. He opened his mouth and said nothing. That was my answer. I stepped back, shook my head. You're all on your own, I said. Then I walked out, and I didn't look back. Not at her, not at him, not at the family that had just proven, once and for all, exactly where I stood. I didn't go home that night. Not to the apartment, not to the life that had just collapsed in on itself. I drove straight to my best friend Maya's place. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and didn't ask a single question. Just stepped aside and said, Come in. That was all it took. The second the door closed behind me, everything I had been holding together slipped. Not in some dramatic, screaming breakdown, just quiet, heavy. Like my body finally understood it didn't have to stay strong for anyone anymore. Maya made tea, set a blanket over my shoulders, sat beside me on the couch and let the silence do its job. I stayed there for almost a week, turned my phone off, ignored the world, because I needed to understand something before I faced anyone again. Not what they did. That part was obvious. I needed to understand why it didn't feel shocking anymore. Why, underneath the anger and the hurt, there was something else. Something colder. Something that whispered, Of course they did. Of course it was her. Of course he chose her. Of course your father stayed silent. Because hadn't that always been the pattern? Alexa made the mess. I cleaned it up. Alexa got the sympathy. I got the responsibility. Alexa crossed the line. I was told to understand. The only difference this time was that I wasn't going to clean anything up. When I finally turned my phone back on, it lit up like a warning signal. Dozens of missed calls. Messages stacked on top of each other. My mother. My father. Ethan. Even Alexa. The audacity of that almost made me laugh. I didn't open most of them. Didn't need to. But I listened to my mom's voicemails. She was crying in almost all of them. Claire, please, just come talk to your father. He says he has a solution. A solution. That word again. I should have known better. But my mother sounded exhausted. Worn down in a way I had never heard before. So I went. Not for him. For her. Walking back into that house felt wrong. Like stepping into a memory that no longer belonged to me. Everything looked the same. Same furniture. Same smell. Same pictures on the walls. But it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a place I used to know. They were all in the living room. My mother looked like she hadn't slept in days. My father sat in his recliner, hands folded, posture straight, like he was about to deliver a lecture. Alexa sat on the couch, eyes red, shoulders slumped. For once in her life, she didn't look like the center of the world. She looked small. I didn't feel sorry for her, not even a little. Ethan wasn't there. Good. I didn't want to see him again. Claire, my father said, clearing his throat. That tone, that familiar, controlled authority. Like nothing had happened that he couldn't fix with the right words. I've been thinking about how to resolve this situation, he continued, in a way that benefits everyone. I almost laughed. Benefits everyone. That told me everything I needed to know. Since you're clearly not willing to work things out with Ethan, he said, and given Alexa's condition. There it was. Condition. Not betrayal. Not consequences. Condition. I think it makes sense for Alexa and Ethan to get married. Silence. Then I laughed. Out loud. Not because it was funny. Because it was insane. But he wasn't done. Furthermore, he continued, like he hadn't just detonated whatever respect I had left for him, since they'll be starting a family, I think it's appropriate for Alexa to take on a larger role in the business. A larger role. I felt something sharp settle in my chest. And with Ethan's experience running the office, he added, and Alexa learning the trade, they could what? I cut in, my voice flat. Replace me? Watch your tone, he snapped. No, I said, you watch yours. The room went still. Even my mother stopped crying. Because I never spoke to him like that. Ever. Let me get this straight, I continued slowly. You want my sister, the one who slept with my boyfriend, to marry him, take over the business I've spent years building. And you want me to what? Smile and help? You're twisting my words, he said. Am I? He leaned forward, his voice tightening. This business is still in my name, Claire. There it was. The real point. If you're not willing to support your family, he continued, then maybe you should consider finding work elsewhere. For a second, I just stared at him. All those years, all that effort, every early morning, every late night, every job I stayed on until it was perfect, every client I brought in, every system I built, every idea I fought for. It meant nothing. Not compared to Alexa, not compared to his need to protect her. I stood up, slowly, because if I moved too fast, I might actually say something I couldn't take back. I'm done, I said. My mother stood up quickly. Claire, wait. I looked at her and softened, just a little. Come with me, I said quietly. You don't have to stay here. Her face broke, but she shook her head. I can't leave your father. Of course she couldn't. She never had. I nodded. Then I turned to Alexa. She finally looked up at me, tears in her eyes, like she was the one who had been hurt. Claire, Don't, I said. One word. That was all it took to shut her down. Then I looked at my father one last time. You made your choice, I said, and I walked out. The next day I started calling clients. Not all of them. Just the ones who trusted me. The ones I had built real relationships with. I'm leaving the company, I told them. I'll recommend other contractors if you need. I didn't tell them why. Didn't need to. Some of them asked questions. Some of them didn't. But a lot of them said the same thing. If you're not there, we're not interested. That wasn't revenge. It was just the truth. Within a week, I had a new job lined up. One of our competitors. Better pay. Better structure. No family ties. No emotional landmines. Just work. Real work. The kind that gets judged on results, not relationships. I threw myself into it. Studied harder. Worked smarter. Took my master electrician exam. Passed. Something my father had always said I wasn't ready for. Turns out I was. I just needed to get out from under him to prove it. As for Alexa and Ethan, they got married. Courthouse. 2 weeks after everything happened. Like it was some kind of rushed love story instead of the fallout of betrayal. My father gave them money for a house. A reward. That's what it felt like. A reward for destroying everything. And for a while, I thought that was the end of it. That they would go on living their version of a happy life. And I would go on building mine. Separate. Done. But I underestimated something. You can't build something real on a foundation made of lies. Eventually, it collapses. And when it does, it takes everything with it. For about 4 months, I heard nothing. And honestly, that was the best part. No updates. No drama. No secondhand guilt wrapped in messages from my mother. Just silence. The kind I had spent my entire life chasing without realizing it. I focused on work. My new company valued me in ways my family never had. They didn't care who my father was, or what Alexa needed, or what emotional storm was brewing behind the scenes. They cared about results. And I delivered. Commercial contracts. Clean installs. Zero callbacks. Within months, I wasn't just keeping up. I was leading jobs. For the first time in my life, my success felt mine. Not borrowed. Not shared. Not quietly handed to someone else after I did the work. Mine. I even started seeing someone new. His name was Daniel. Nothing dramatic. Nothing rushed. We took it slow. Careful. Because I had learned the hard way what happens when you build too fast on trust that hasn't been tested. He didn't ask too many questions about my family, and I didn't offer too many answers. Not close, I told him once. That was enough. Until the call came. It was late. Almost 11 at night. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, lighting up the room in soft blue. Mom. I stared at the screen for a long second before answering. Hello? She was crying. Again. But this time, it sounded different. Not emotional. Desperate. Claire, please, she said. Your father needs to talk to you. I almost hung up. Almost. But something in her voice stopped me. Put him on, I said. There was a rustle. Then my father spoke. And for the first time in my life, he didn't sound in control. Claire, he said quietly, I need your help. That alone was enough to tell me everything had gone wrong. What happened? I asked. There was a long pause. Then he exhaled. Alexa, she's made some mistakes. I leaned back against the headboard. Of course she had. Define mistakes, I said. And then he told me. Not all at once. Not cleanly. But enough. Alexa had taken over parts of the business. Ethan handled the office. On paper, it looked like a continuation. In reality, it was a slow disaster. 3 major commercial jobs had gone bad. Not minor issues. Serious code violations. Wrong wiring gauges. Missing grounding. Improper installations. The kind of mistakes that don't just cost money. They risk lives. One client was already threatening legal action. Another had pulled out completely. And it got worse. Alexa had hired one of her old friends as head electrician. No license. No certifications. No experience beyond basic repairs. He said he could learn on the job, my father muttered. I actually laughed. A short, sharp sound. You let that happen? I asked. I didn't know, he said. That was the problem. He had stopped knowing, because he had handed everything over to someone who didn't understand what she was holding. Then came the financial mess. Missed insurance payments. Let that sink in. In an electrical business, no liability coverage. One accident. One fire. And everything would be gone. And the money? Gone anyway. Cash payments taken and never recorded. Loans taken out without his knowledge. Large ones. The kind that don't disappear quietly. Where is it? I asked. Silence. Of course. No one knew, but I could guess. New car. Designer clothes. The illusion of success. All paid for with something that didn't belong to her. How long? I asked. Months, he admitted. Months. It took him months to notice his entire business was being gutted from the inside. Janet had tried to warn him, he said. Told him something was off. He didn't listen. Of course he didn't. Because it was Alexa. And Alexa didn't do things like that. Except she did. And now everything was falling apart. Claire, he said again, his voice tightening. I need you to come back. Help me fix this. I'll make you majority owner. Full control. Everything you wanted. There it was. The offer. The validation. The thing I had spent years chasing. Given to me now, when it was already broken. I closed my eyes for a second. 6 months ago, I would have said yes. Without hesitation. Without conditions. Now, it didn't even tempt me. I need to think about it, I said. Not because I was considering it, because I wanted the call to end. He started talking again. Faster. Desperate. We're going to lose everything, he said. The business, the house, your mother, she's not handling this well. There it was. The guilt, always the same. I cut him off. Do you remember what I told you? I asked. Silence. When I warned you about Alexa? Nothing. When I told you she would run it into the ground? A breath. Faint. You said family is family, I continued. You said we'd figure it out. Claire. Well, I said quietly, this is your family. Figure it out. There was nothing left to say. A few days later, my mother texted. They were moving. Out of state. To live with her sister. The house was going. The business was collapsing. Everything my father had built over 30 years. Gone in less than 6 months. I felt something when I read that. Not satisfaction. Not relief. Just distance. Like it wasn't mine anymore. Like it never had been. I told my mom the same thing I had told her before. You can stay with me, I wrote. Anytime. Just you. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. Just sent back, I can't leave your father. And that was that. A couple days after that, I got a message from Ethan. I almost didn't open it, but I did. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, it started. He was right. I need help. Of course he did. Alexa left. I stared at the screen. Read it again. Left? She took money. I don't know where she is. The baby. She says it might not even be mine. There it was. The final twist. The part that should have shocked me. Should have meant something. Instead, I just felt tired. Like I had already lived through every possible version of this ending. I don't have anywhere else to go, he wrote. I didn't respond. Didn't need to. Because for the first time, I understood something clearly. Their chaos was no longer my responsibility. Not to fix. Not to manage. Not to understand. Later that night, I sat in my living room, the lights low, the city quiet outside. Daniel had gone home. Work was steady. My life was stable. Not perfect. Not untouched. But mine. My phone buzzed again. Another message. This time from Alexa. I need to talk. I looked at it for a long time. Then I set my phone face down on the table and left it there. Because some doors, once they close, should stay closed. If the truth about the baby comes out, if there are legal responsibilities, I'll handle them. The right way. Through lawyers. Through boundaries. Through choices that don't destroy me in the process. But emotionally, mentally, I'm done. People always talk about revenge like it's loud. like it's dramatic, like it ends with someone getting what they deserve in a way you can see. But sometimes, the real ending is quieter than that. Sometimes the real ending is just walking away and not looking back.